Welcome back, everybody. We're been
here.
A long time. This is our first remote episode. I hope you don't mind for the long-time viewers of the channel. But if you haven't noticed, we've been gone for a while, and we're finally back. There's a lot of reasons for that.
We made a movie. I got married. You got a house.
Your priorities were really interesting. It's like movie first, then married.
I mean, I was just listing things chronologically here. But
That is fair. That is fair. We've been extremely busy. Mateo got married. He got married in Vegas. Which why Vegas? Why'd you pick Vegas, Mateo?
Initially it was going to be because it was simpler, and I do believe it was simpler than just doing like a normal wedding here. But it was still not simple because instead of just being like Rowan, myself, and like two friends, like there was a group of people.
Everyone wanted to come. Because
we don't hate our families and therefore wanted our families there. And then, well, if we're going to bring our families, might as well bring our friends. And then at that point, it was better than, it's better to have like 20 people than 200 people. But that was still
true.
Still a lot.
Yeah, it was a really good time.
Elvis
Emily and
was there.
Yeah, Elvis was there, obviously. He just comes with Vegas. So if you're there, he's just it's part of the package deal. It's just on the itemized list. But yeah, we had a lot of fun. The Brazilian steakhouse was fantastic.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you for that. Yeah, other than that, like Emily and I bought our first home, which we're really excited about. We spent a while getting moved in. I didn't have like a washer and dryer or a fridge for like a couple weeks, so that was kind of tough. Just a lot of eating out, going to Brahms, which, if you don't know, is like a ice cream and burger joint in Oklahoma.
Not necessarily the most nourishing of fare.
No, I was miserable, and half of it was because of the diet, and then the other half was like re-wearing clothes and stuff. But yeah, we're settled in now. My office is kind of a wreck, but it's a work in progress.
I mean, look at my study right now. But
your stuff's settled though. My stuff is like not staying where it's at, so it doesn't feel like intentionally placed. Your stuff looks like it belongs. You know what I mean?
Well, are you ready to get back into it, get in the groove?
Yeah, get in the groove. So I guess starting out, the big thing about this episode is an official debrief of the feature film. This was my first feature film. It was your first feature film. It's kind of a big project, and it almost killed us.
Yeah, it was. I don't know, like, I have friends that talk about feature films all the time, and so like going through our feature film challenges, I'm kind of like, we had it easy, really.
You think so?
And at the same time, it was like, it's one of the hardest things we've done. So like, I can't just downplay it. Like, I was fine. Because there were parts of it where Zach and I were at each other's throats. But at the same time, like, it could have gone so much worse.
For sure. It also, you probably get used to those challenges as time goes on. Like, maybe it felt more intense for us just because, like, first go around. But I mean, we survived and we did it, and we have a final product, which is pretty dope.
Man, it's so hard, like, looking back on it, because we really finished. Would we say we finished in October?
Yeah, for sure.
It was like last week I think we got a little bit of extra stuff in like early November, but I was getting married in November. And then Zach, you moved into a house and did all of that process.
And then we had all
December.
the holidays and
So really, like, any work, like, I worked on the we'll talk about this later, but I worked on the score some. And you've been editing the thing forever, it feels like, even though it's only been like 2 months. So it's been a while, and like, and I'm looking at it in retrospect, and I'm like I feel really good about it still, and I think that's a good thing.
Good. Like good as in like happy with the product, or just like accomplished that we did something hard in general, or
accomplished that we did something hard. I think it was my only New Year's resolution for 2024 was make a feature film. And we did it. And like, we had to really push through parts of it, but we did it. And I think that was valuable.
Yeah. Granted, we're only barely scraping in at feature film length.
Yeah, it's like 40.
It'll be like 40-ish minutes, like 45.
It's close. It is a short, long one.
Yeah, or a long, short one.
No, it can't be a long, short one. We still got to stay as a feature.
Okay, fair enough.
To that, how are you feeling about it? Like, I know you are like delving into it with all the editing. You recently like showed me a very rough cut of a teaser, which, you know, those at home, I can't wait till you see that. But like, as like a project as a whole, like, how do you feel about it?
You know, overall, I feel pretty good about it. Like, as far as projects I've worked on go, like, this is the biggest one and highest quality one, I would say. There's a lot of like really good stuff there. But the problem is, because I'm so close to the project, like, it can kind of be hard to remember like what's good about it. So I don't know, like, I'm spending all this time editing it and I'm just kind of like, is this good? Are people going to like this? Is this engaging? Like, I don't know. So I think I might have mentioned this to you, but I won't feel like completely accomplished until I have like a cut that's 99% of the way there. Currently it's about 90.
Okay.
And I'm showing it to people. Like, it's good enough to show to people, and I'm getting that feedback to go into another round of edits. But like, we're so close. But overall, I think it's good. I'm happy with what we put together. It's impressive in its own different ways.
Yeah, like, again, just for like top layer of the project, the fact that we did it is more than, you know, I would say maybe 90% of filmmakers I know. Like,
that's fair.
Most of the young filmmakers in our position, they just don't do it. And sometimes I know people who have made several feature films, but it's always like hinged on funding, et cetera, from somebody else. It's never been just let's go do it on for what for us was like a $300-$400 budget.
Something like that.
Like, you can't even buy
tiny.
like a PS4 for
yeah,
the money we made this film on. Now, obviously, a lot of that was just like friends and actors donating their time through extreme generosity. And if you find yourself in a point where you need to hire somebody to do a job, that's a little more cost intensive with what we did. But
right.
I still do find it very impressive.
Yeah, I'm proud of us. Now, at the same time, we made our first feature film this year, and Joel Haver made 12.
Yeah, well,
so
I'm not Joel Haver either.
Last, but that is true. But like, I guess measuring yourself, like competing against your past self, that's the main thing. And I'm sure we'll get to the point where we're doing 12 features in a year. Could you imagine?
I mean,
maybe one day.
With our process with this one, I think we could. Like, the issue became, and this is partially why you haven't heard from us in 6 months outside of some LinkedIn posts I've made. And it's like actually, like, whenever we like buckled down and did it, we were good. Like, we really got after it. The issue came with like balancing Zach and I's like personal lives, because it's like, you know, I have to like go on dates with my wife, and I have like a social life that, though, you know, I can make sacrifices there for the film. Like, I still have to show up for friends' birthday parties. I still have to, do all these things. And like, you can't sacrifice all of that for making a film, not long-term for sure. But whenever we were able to make those stars align, get people in locations, we like really started cranking it out and really like putting in the work. Mm-hmm. So we could do 12 months of features.
Wait,
I'd have to quit my job, but we could do it.
That is true. Yeah. So like, what have you learned from this project that makes you so confident that, you know, we could increase our volume in the future?
I mean, so there's like a Patrick H. Willems quote. He was recently talking about how he's just now putting out, I think it's his first feature film. Well, technically second feature film, regardless. But he's a YouTuber who's been in this space for a long time. If you remember his like, what if the X-Men were written by Wes Anderson video, like back in the day, he's been doing YouTube with the hopes of being able to make a living at this, as a filmmaker, just who also makes YouTube videos for 10, 15 years now. Mm-hmm. And he finally was like, only when I just straight up made my own film did I get my, like offers to make films from like onwards. He's like, they're not going to hire you to do it if they don't think you can, if like they don't know you already do it. Nobody's going to. And like that's the big filmmaker thing is like, oh yeah, you know, I just need a producer to swoop down from on high and say, you have talent, come direct my, you know, my new blockbuster or whatever. And that's just not how it works. For him, he was like, I made a film, people liked that film, and then I got an offer and funding to make another film, and then hopefully another film after that. And he's, you know, shooting small stuff, low budget, but he's got like people from the cast of Severance on there, which is like mind blowing, right? Like like top billing cast members of Severance. The guy who plays Dylan on Severance, who was also in Twisters, an Oklahoma production.
You know, you bring up an interesting point. Like for filmmakers, there's a bit of a chicken and egg problem because you can't really get asked to make a movie if you haven't already made a movie, and that can be kind of tough. So it's like, how do you make a movie if you don't have the opportunity to make a movie? I mean, the answer to that is to start like relatively small.
Yeah.
But I think the lesson here is no one's going to hire you to do something you've never done before. And so finding an excuse like we did with our first feature film to just go out and do it, you know, if any doors open up from that, it's going to be because we took that first step and we didn't just kind of wait around. I
mean, that's what, like, you didn't go to film school. You didn't finish college. I finished college with a degree that was not focused on film. For this reason, which is like, you know, I want to be able to have a roof over my head while I make films. But like the point of a lot of these very prestigious film schools is that they can, first of all, get people connected with people who make movies, but also have a curriculum where they make like a body of work that can then get looked at by people who are able to judge whether or not these people are actually worthy of making a movie like on the big time just from their like schooling. It's not so much the actual classes you take as much as like the body of work you put out. At least, you know, that's a massive generalization, right?
Right.
But like that, you know, it's more the fact that like Sofia Coppola made Lick the Star. When they made The Matrix, the Wachowski sisters, what they initially did was they took all the money they had to make The Matrix that you know, the studio had given them, and they made that first scene where Trinity's running from the cops, and you know, running up on the walls, and there's all, you know, all the gun fu, and it's like amazing, right? They blew their entire budget on that for The Matrix on that, showed it to the studio and said, we can make you like a lot more, we can make you a whole movie more, we have a script. And it just got them the funding for a much bigger project because they saw that they could make a movie, and they're like, oh, I want you to make more movie. It's one of those, you just have to go out and do it. But when you're at our level, it's not oh, you know, I have a 10 grand budget for this, or I took out a loan. We had $300, $400.
Which is totally doable these days. And
you can do it. You can shoot on your iPhone, which you already have in your pocket. You can shoot on a high-8 tape. You can shoot on a bad DSLR if you really want to, like, lean into that aesthetic. The cameras are, like, in many ways, the cheapest they've been ever. So,
yeah,
like,
for sure. Which is, it's funny you bring that up because we're going to be talking about that in today's Zach's Gear Corner. Very exciting. So to kind of bring us back to the feature film project, I know we've talked about it on the podcast before, but I kind of want to walk through literally every step of the production and just kind of like use this opportunity to document like what our thought process was at any given point. Kind of tell some funny stories, like for example, like huffing smoke in your house for 12 hours straight. Yeah, right. Applewood. That was super fun. So I guess just starting out with the script, what motivated you to write this particular story? And before you answer that, I, just like our audience, didn't know what this film was going to be about while you were working on it. Now, obviously, I've since figured it out because I've part of the production, but like you were kind of on your own brainstorming the ideas for this project. So where did you even start with it?
Well, so my initial inspiration, I wasn't going to write a script at all because I already had a script. We had a script that had been going back since 2021, I believe.
Corporate Saturdays?
Yes, corporate Saturdays. And I was like, okay, this is the year we make it. It's a very doable script. It's not, by the way. Now having a feature behind me, I was like, that would have been a nightmare to produce compared to this much more focused script.
Had like 5 times the cast. Actually, more than that.
Like even double casting, it would have been a nightmare. But I got really into the sort of the idea of chasing success, which, you know, as somebody who I've been trying to get scripts sold. This year I've been like one of my resolutions is really try to get scripts sold, and you know I have friends who I'm reaching out. I'm like, hey, if you know any managers or agents that just need somebody with, you know, a variety of scripts, like I've got them. But so pouring a little bit of my personal life into that, really just talking about a guy with the single-minded pursuit of something that maybe wasn't good for him. I had a pretty tight I will admit I had a pretty tight deadline for this, and looking at the film now, it's very much a learning film where I will say like the next feature that we eventually create will be better than this. This is not like the best possible feature we could have made. We've learned so much already that we can really push it. But even so, like I'm pretty proud of like a single month I had to write this script. Despite some of the challenges produced by trying to get a little experimental with my process.
Yeah, so that kind of leads us into like, how did you approach the workflow of writing this? Because I know you had a different approach to actually writing the film.
So as a writer, I'm a big believer in the plot outline. The late David Lynch, may he rest in peace, recently, you did hear about that, right?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. I was like, I don't want to break this to you on air. But the late David Lynch, may he rest in peace, always said to take basically 75 cue cards, write out your plot beats on your cue cards, place them out, and then like reorder them as you wish until you have like, you know, you have 75 scenes, you can reorder them as you wish, and then you have your film basically. And I take that a little different direction. I call it like a wall of crazy or a conspiracy wall, where I have a bunch of plot points and then I connect them with lines, and it's all on this big roll of butcher paper that I've taped to my wall, and then I can go stare at it in despair for a bit as I write this. And like that's my general workflow, is basically a big plot map with I usually draw through it a big curve of the hero's journey, so points on the graph basically sit like I need to have like this general scene and plot point here on the hero's journey, and it has to connect to like the kind of ebb and flow pacing of the film in a certain way, and that really helps me. And for this I was like, maybe I'm gonna like really mess with that, and I'll stretch it out and I won't run that, and I'll have more kind of abstract non-linear plotting. And I got about 2 weeks, and I initially like said, oh yeah, give me like 3 weeks to do this, and I wrote this in about like a month and a week or so.
Still impressive.
Which, for a feature script, even, you know, for a 45-minute movie, still like, I cannot be mad at myself for what I produced in that time. But I did go over simply because I tried a little more experimental process, and it just didn't work. So I basically went back to the literal drawing board, threw all my plot on a map, and it was much easier after that. It was tough just coming up with really like good images and interesting characters to shove into something on such short notice, and like it's I will say kind of a horror genre. Almost a thriller genre.
Horror adjacent, for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely horror adjacent. It's in that in between. It's almost like Long Legs is like horror, but there's not all the mystery that you would expect.
Or jump scares.
Yeah. This isn't really a jump scare film. And so, you know, horror adjacent as it is, that's not necessarily the easiest genre for me to write in a month. Sometimes I need to sit more with the concept. I just didn't have the time at this point, but it really worked for me. Like looking back at it, I'm like, yeah, this is like, it has its flaws as all scripts do, but I think it still holds up for the timeline we made this film in.
Yeah, no, I think it does too, and I hope people like really engage well with like what you've provided and with the themes and also like the actual subject matter of the film. I think it's something I hope people enjoy. So
next phase of the film, this is where you come in, Zach.
For sure. So I guess going into going from script writing to like kind of pre-production, we like had this ambition to make a feature film last year. It's January now, which is messing with my brain. But last year we were, all ready to go. We were supposed to produce it like in a month, which was pretty naive of us.
Yeah, when we were in those initial director meetings, and I'll let you talk about your experience directing it, Zach, because I do want that. Zach was like, hey, can we do this in a month? And I was like, hi, I have a job that just ramped me up on, now I'm on 6 a.m. calls every morning, which is not great for me in the sleep department. But at the time I was just ramping up training for said job. And I was like, I don't know if I can do a month. So it became 6 basically. Well, 3 months with some gaps in between.
For sure. Well, I think we shot for like 15 days, which, divide that into 6 months as you will. I think most of it was up front and then it kind of like got further and further apart. But
I'll say 4 months of like actual like shooting, and then the past 2 months have basically just been post-production.
Right. No, but I bring that up because like in approaching this project, I had to be adaptable because our plan shifted very, very quickly, because it went from, like your workload wasn't as crazy in like June and before that, to like, like now things are ramping up and we have to like kind of change our plan a little bit.
I'm working late for deadlines. Zach's like pulling out his hair because he's like, I said we'd be done in like June and now it's July.
No, that came later. Came later. We're not there yet. But I like approaching the project initially. I was like, oh no, I kind of feel like Mateo's like, I don't know, maybe things are going to change and we won't have time to actually like do the film this year anymore. Like I was like having a little micro crisis. And so I guess the approach initially was, well, like if we don't end up finishing it, because it is a big project, like there's a high likelihood that we'll just fail. I don't want to get too many people on board right away. And so we started with shooting like scenes that just me and you could do, because you are also starring in the film. We haven't mentioned that yet.
Well,
so
we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that and lower down in the production challenges list.
Right.
But yeah, I am starring in it.
But we tackled it like very logically in like filming scenes at your house, literally in the study that you're in right now.
Mm-hmm. You get to see my floor a lot.
Yes. Yeah. And just you in general, because you're all over this film as the writer, but also like, the star. How does it feel to be a star?
Considering that I'm also to some extent in the rest of our shorts, even like Does God Love Robots? The robot is me. That's just me toddling around in there.
Also in your house and in your study.
Also in my house, funnily enough. I miss when what is now my bedroom used to be just kind of like a equipment storage room that
room.
Yeah, clear some boxes out of and sit me in as a robot.
Right. But yeah, no, speaking of Does God Love Robots, like that was our last project before this feature film, basically. I mean, for the most part.
We've done a couple of things, but
yeah, like major one in my mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like important one. And I feel like I had learned a lot of lessons from that film, like lessons about like abstraction, like not feeling like I have to reveal so much. And I really just kind of wanted to ride that wave a little bit because I liked the tone that we struck with Does God Love Robots? And I kind of wanted to recreate that. And like generally speaking, my like inspiration for this like season of my life as a filmmaker, I've been very moved by the movie Skinamarink, which you've seen.
Yes.
So Skinamarink really opened my eyes to like a style of filmmaking that I didn't know was possible, which is that sort of analog horror vibe, but mainly like with it comes this abstraction, like this reluctance almost to reveal too much, and just really bury things in grain and keep them in the shadows. And
which is perfect
like,
for like a horror dream film.
yeah. And well, like I wanted to create a project that was a bit subdued. And so like before you had even started writing it, I'd kind of given you a general direction, which this is basically how we work, is I say, I want to make something kind of like this. And then you say, cool. And you make something like
Kind of like that.
Yeah, kind of like it, which is a fun workflow. But yeah, no, I'm impressed with what you did with the topic and the subject of the film. It's given my vague direction, like it's impressive that you come up with anything at all.
Honestly, your direction as a director, in the pre-production phase was not bad. Like you gave me like a distinct set of vibes to hit, and I did my best to hit those vibes.
While also like bringing
it just
your
comes
own
down
voice
to like
it.
time. My most recent feature script, Untitled Doom Ripoff, not actually called that, but is a very I needed the vibes of like something set in the world of Doom almost, where you can kill a demon with a chainsaw, and that had been stuck in my head for 3 years. I'd been writing it for 3 years. I had like 4 years of development behind it, and then I finished it in December of 2023, and then turn around and basically, I believe I wrote the script in like May, June for our recent feature, and that was literally May to June. That's like all the time I had to write that script, and so
it's not very long.
Yeah, if I had more time with it, I could definitely squeeze more out of it. Does that keep me up at night? Sometimes, and then I'll watch, whatever Zach sends me. I'm like, oh, well, it turned out pretty well.
There's something there, yeah.
All things
there's
considered.
Something there. But I guess
Somniac 3, not the actual title.
No, it's not actually. We can't even joke about that anymore.
No, it's we already dropped the title for that one. But yeah. Zach, so like you've talked about abstraction, but like as you went from here's the vibes, then I said, here's a script that is somehow behind deadline despite like the time we had. Like as we moved into production strategy, how was that for you as a director? Because we didn't have like PAs and like, storyboard artists. It was just us two at that point.
Yeah, the hardest part about it was like having shoot dates so close to when you finish the script, because like, which couldn't be helped. We had a tight deadline, but like I was still wrapping my mind around the project, like basically wrapping my mind around what you had sent me, while trying to make like call shots from a director's like point of view. So that was tough, like organizing things and like having opinions on like certain acting decisions and things like that. Like that was it. Yeah, like that's what pushed me, I think, the most with this project, was like not fully grasping it, but like having to kind of like play that role a little bit. And as time went on, it got easier, but yeah, it was hard. It was a challenge.
At the same time, like in pre-production, I still had a lot of fun. One of the more fun parts of it was building the creature.
Yeah.
There's a titular monster in it, and obviously it's they call it like a Chuckification, where like if you show the creature like I think it's like there's more than 10 seconds of a monster in a film, it just a monster that's like the unknown, then it immediately becomes like not believable anymore. Like Chucky, and like in the first bits of Chucky the doll, people were like, oh, that's scary, and then literally like after like a minute of it being in the film, they were like, okay, well now it's just kind of zany, wacky. I remember Disney, whenever they shot 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, the squid attack scene was originally in the daytime, and he was like, after like maybe a minute of seeing the squid arms and all of that, the audiences were just like, this is terrible. It's like clearly an animatronic robot just flailing all over the place, not believable. And I believe it was Walt Disney who said, just make it during a storm at night. We need to see less of it. And so we did take that into consideration when we created the creature.
Especially a low budget creature.
Yeah.
Like if we had showed more of it, maybe 5 seconds of it would have been
not
too much.
to give away too much. but it is like it's basically a big lump of darkness.
Yeah.
And like that, it's kind of hard to make it scary, but sitting there, especially as like, in my acting, like I'm sitting there like with the creature looming over me, like it was spooky. Like
Yeah.
I'm in the woods with this thing. It definitely
Crawling
it really
around
worked.
around the ground on with this thing behind you.
That was a workout.
Pretty good.
Crawling around on the ground was like I was sore the next day.
Yeah, so which is funny because like that was the climax of an already like very eventful day. Like that was I think day 3 of shooting, might have been day 4.
Might have
But
been
it
day
was
4.
Relatively early on. We shot for like 12 hours straight on a Saturday. Found time to watch what was that movie? Pi.
Yes, by Darren Aronofsky.
Take a break and watch a movie, and then end the night by filming the creature. Most of like the pivotal creature scenes we shot that night. But spending 12 hours in your house with just like the fog machine going constantly was
I was killer
really
on the lungs.
hard.
I
on
have
my
sensitive lungs. Zach was developing sensitive lungs from it.
Yeah, it was crazy. Like I've never felt that before. Like I was like, am I getting sick? Like I don't know what's going on, and I didn't realize like right away that it was because of the smoke that was just billowing throughout your house.
There are like behind the scenes shots of just like us walking. It looks like we're in like a nightclub or something. There's just so much smog and fog. It was good. I think it really worked. Didn't set my smoke alarms off, which is odd because if I think about cooking bacon, they'll go off. But apparently, whenever we're just like blasting the fog machine, it does not matter.
Yeah, because my old smoke alarms were set off by it at my old apartment. So that is weird. I don't know if that's good or bad. It could go either way.
I don't know. It was convincing, whatever it was. And the best part was that like the creature as a whole only costs like I think $75, which includes paying Roz, who was kind of a creature wrangler on set, to construct it. It was not bad at all. I think maybe $80 because we went and got more cloth for like to cover the arms. But like that's pretty good for kind of the hero prop of the film.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's also cool to have so with the creature, I had some input on the design, and the whole concept was make it as big as possible. Couldn't make it as big as I wanted it to be. But
yeah, because we have ceilings.
Yeah, I know, but that's a pain. Get rid of those. But like
even in your apartment at the time, which had high ceilings, it was one of those like big kind of industrial concrete.
But some sections were lower, so it would still be a problem.
Yeah, it would still freaking bonk its head on it. It was hysterical.
It's really funny. But yeah, it's, without giving away too much, big black blob, very, very tall, which its size and scale, I think it makes it at least a little scary.
Yeah, it was pretty frightening. Everybody on set was pretty impressed by it, and I appreciated it. I hope it comes out in the film as like
I think
really
it does
scary.
so far.
Yeah,
I think it does.
I'm very excited to see like the finished product with all the music.
Have to do a movie night.
Yeah. Do a
just
premiere.
the normal movie nights. Just do it during one of those.
And speaking of people on set, our actors were fantastic. Really, I don't think we've ever really had when we've done like an open call to agencies for actors, I don't think we've ever had necessarily a bad experience.
Yeah, I would have to agree.
Like, there often will be like some negative something or there, either just like scheduling or whatever, there'll be some issues. But I've never had like a dismal, I'm never working with this person experience. They've always been actors who are really passionate about the craft and really want to collaborate.
Yeah, we had a lot of fantastic actors, Mateo being one of them.
Yeah, okay, well, we can get into that now if you wish.
Yeah, so like you've had acting experience and you've been in a lot of our films just throughout the years, but how was it, how did you approach this project differently since you had to do more prep work and you had to kind of just do more and be in it more?
I'll admit this was probably my most challenging. Normally, either it's like all body language stuff. There's been a lot implementation, which was our kind of
Mm.
mobster gun dealer gets haunted by like the spirit of death short, which was just, it was done in what, 24 hours.
Mm-hmm. I really like that movie.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. But like I'm basically just like I'm doing the silent acting, which is fine. I love silent acting. I love having to do body language. Obviously, we've mentioned Does God Love Robots, which was completely silent. I didn't have to utter a word. I didn't even have to do facial emotes. I just had to like act tired, which I was tired because it was February and the sun went down super early. So like, perfect. And then, we've done some zanier stuff before. We have a as yet unreleased one where I play some sort of insane reporter. If you recall. Yeah. Gonzo.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And like I'm just screaming and rolling around on the floor for that one.
We need to post that because it's pretty good.
Yeah, honestly, I just need to probably tweak the sound design.
Mm-hmm.
But like going from that to our earlier stuff where I'm like, I'm another mob boss. And one of our very first joint films was Colleagues on a Trial Basis, where I play the drug dealer ?
You were like a mob boss kind
yeah,
of.
sort of. And like I'm just, I get to do the kind of Tony Soprano imitation there. And it's all very, very like upbeat, and then here I am playing a character who has to like emote and have interiority, and I felt that was very, very difficult compared to the past, I don't know, 10 years of acting experience I'd had. Before that in theater I had done serious roles, but at the same time, I was a bit rusty and I was running off of a script that I wrote, so I had to know the character. It was interesting. And
yeah,
like playing with like me as the writer, and therefore like I know all the context behind the character's actions, and then having to filter that through your direction because you also had an interpretation was very interesting.
Yeah, that can be a blessing and a curse, like being the writer, because it's like maybe knowing less would be better in some cases. I don't know.
It's hard, and I really did try to like not get auteur with it, because you can just like, you can be like, nobody understands it the way I do, and while that's perfectly fine and I respect getting that artistic vision, really sticking to it, it's not great for collaboration, which is something that, especially when you're on a film set of 2 to 3 people, sometimes you really need that collaboration going. So I really tried to like make sure that I wasn't getting too weird about it. We'll see how that translates. I don't know. Yeah. How did you feel about that?
No, I'm gonna ask you a question, because you're onto something interesting there. Like, what do you think what the difference between like your vision and my vision was? Because I wasn't really aware that there was a significant difference, but I'm sure there was.
I think you let me have, especially since you did know I was the writer, and you did like, you pushed some of those decisions to me. And part of this is, I think I've mentioned it before on the show, Zach has like 2 very distinct direction modes he goes into, where he'll be like, hey, I'm Zach, I'm doing director of photography right now, I'm framing everything up, just kind of do whatever. Which sometimes as an actor I'm like, do you need more? Do you need less? What are we doing here? And then sometimes you're in the like actual director mode, where you're like, okay, give me a little more, give me a little less. Can you change your diction on this? Can you stress this word, etc., etc. And like, obviously on a real film set, that isn't just like us in a park or us on the floor of my study, you can have like somebody dedicated to DP. You can have several people dedicated to DP. You have assistant directors and all of that. But when it's just us two, like you're really having to juggle everything there, which is something I noticed. So sometimes I'd be going all out, and I could do really whatever I wanted, which was fun. I loved to play around with it. But sometimes I did feel like you wanted a much more subtle delivery,
Mm-hmm.
almost wooden delivery. And I really had to like tone it down from my vision for a little more like in your face performance.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Yeah,
really
I
the
can
big
see
one
that.
is like you're like emote less, and I'm like I'm emoting like not at all, and you're like I need
Yeah.
micro expressions,
Mm-hmm.
which as somebody whose predominant serious acting came from the stage,
Right. There's a big difference.
like I'm like I'm having to emote to like the people in the back row, and then here I am like you're
The
2
camera's
inches
right
from
in your
my
face.
face.
Yeah,
you know,
especially with the 20 millimeter lens,
Yeah.
which I shot a lot of the film on.
you
It's
can
like,
see my eyebrow hair twitch. You don't
Yeah.
need my like a big surprised face.
Mm-hmm.
That and you think I run weird apparently.
Everyone thinks you run weird.
I don't understand.
Bro runs like this.
He's running in terror. He's not gonna have perfect form just because he did cross country.
I would have perfect form.
Well, you're special.
I'm
but
not special. I'm
everybody was
normal.
like, "Why are you running like that?" And I'm like, "Because he's running in terror." And I'm running through like tall grass, so I'm kind of Indiana Jonesing it.
Mhm.
But that's the other. I think Zach had a very different vision for how the main character runs in the film.
Which, by the way, I kind of want to act. Kind of want to try my hand at it.
Okay,
Because,
we can do something.
but it has to be really physical.
Okay.
Like a little bit of action. Because like I'm kind of a stuntman a little bit. Like I will throw myself on the ground like full force, like trip over stuff. Like I know how to fall. So put me in, coach.
This is what
Next
a year
project.
of doing improv will do to a man.
Yeah, fair. The tripping on the face stuff I think came from before that, but just crashed on my bicycle and motorcycle a lot.
When was the last time you were like properly starring in something?
Movie wise, Somniac 2.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that would be. It would be the Somniac, the second Somniac, the remake, the reboot.
Which this film almost was. We had to
Considered
stop
calling it
ourselves.
Somniac 3 because unfortunately this is this film that most embodies the title Somniac.
Yeah, Somniac 3, baby.
Thankfully,
Would have been iconic.
I don't know. All the shoots for okay, I don't know about your first Somniac shoot because I wasn't there for that. That was before my time.
Oh, it was fantastic, dude.
Second
I'm gonna post that
Somniac
on the
shoot
podcast
was
channel.
kind of miserable.
Yeah. I had a good time though.
Yeah, like I mean, I'm always happier on set than not on set. It's like that quote. I forget who specifically said it, but it's the only thing I that is worse than making art for me is not making art. And of course I've heard it attributed. The only thing that's worse for me than making movies, I hate making movies, but it's worse not to make movies. Or the worst thing than writing books is not writing books, etc., etc. But it very much it does feel like I'd rather be on set than not on set.
Yeah.
And I say this as a starry-eyed youngster. If you are some sort of producer that wants to ruin my life and put me on a movie set, feel free. Teach me a lesson. But until then, it's my party and I'll cry if I want to.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like I kind of put you through hell. Like nothing's worse than working with me. Like Somniac 2, like 14-hour days. Like in retrospect, 14 hours.
It was like two 14-hour days. It was like we were in one house.
It was late, dude. It was late.
It was late. It was so late that I had like a midterm like the next day, and I was like, "Hey, I'm just going to tell you to lock up, and I'm just gonna leave you in this house that I have the key to because I cannot."
To be fair, like since then, our shoot days have been like way shorter.
Oh
like,
yeah,
the lesson learned was, hey, more shorter days, people are happier. And
despite the fact that we did 12 hours on the
no, that was just me and you hanging out.
True.
We watched a movie in the middle of it.
Yeah, we did watch a movie in the middle of it.
And it was like from the time I arrived to the time I left was 12 hours, which is like not all of that was work, but
no.
Yeah.
We
like
had
Ross
that
was there for,
like
the last
union
few
mandated
hours.
lunch break in the middle.
Yeah. Dude, if we run an agency, we should have mandatory like movie screenings if the day is like longer than 12 hours, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you have to take a break and watch a movie, which we
It's like
did.
not a pizza party, it's you get a movie screening.
Yeah. well, there's pizza too, because we're
Yeah,
still
of
cheap.
course, yeah. But I guess before we move on from like
Production stuff,
production stuff.
because there's a few other things too, like the operators and stuff. That was pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, we've talked about my acting ad nauseum. I'm done. Let's stop talking about my acting. I still look at it sometimes and I'm like, oh, I don't like to see myself on screen.
Yeah, I mean that's always going to be the case though.
But I had a lot of great co-stars. So tell me about like kind of your experience directing some like very talented people. Not me, because we directed guns on screen like properly for the first time with blinks and everything.
I didn't do it very well, but we did do it.
Again, like this is a learning film for the next one. I still have leftover blanks, and my guns can once more be, converted back to screen guns as you do. So like perfectly possible if we want to do more.
Yeah, no, like directing other actors and not just you. Like directing you is the easiest thing because I can tell you like, Mateo, you look stupid, and you're like, yeah, okay, and then you change it and it's like it's cool. But like I'm not going to tell that to like our other actors, like people I don't know as well. But like to a lesser extent, like asking our actors to do anything like was something I was more insecure with than like asking you or people we've worked with a lot, because I value that they're there so much that I don't want to like ask more of them as a director. Like
you don't want to step on toes.
Yeah, that too. Like, especially with the more experienced actors, like Connie, for example. Like, she's been in a lot of like proper films.
Yeah,
and
she's
it's, like,
a star. It's
nothing I'm gonna tell you is gonna be better than what you're gonna just like provide naturally. Now, of course, it's not either or. The director really needs to provide that like kind of a outside look at the acting and like frame it within the context of the story. So even an inexperienced director working with an experienced actor is still like really necessary. But it was interesting. Like there were times where like you just got to learn how to work with certain people and you don't know how to work with them like right away. And then as time goes on, you get better. So with Connie, it was funny because like sometimes she would enter a scene and she would just know exactly what she was going to do. And she wasn't going to like she would listen, but she wouldn't necessarily like take direction right away. And then like later on she would be like asking more. So it was this interesting like back and forth where sometimes it's like, oh, she's like really cooking, like she's gonna give me something really good, so I should like not intervene. But then there were other times where like you did have to step in, if that makes sense. So it was like it was an interesting dynamic. It wasn't bad or anything. It was just like that's how you had to work with her, like, which worked really well because you got these really believable performances that weren't tainted by me saying like 50 things right before we started rolling. So that balance was really cool. Let's see, Bobby was great.
We were a bit nervous about him with like previous work where memorization sort of became a bit of an issue as line memorization. And if you recall, Kubrick was not big on actors who could not memorize their lines. That's why he loved working with British actors who were actually trained to memorize lines before they got on set. And I know Zach's idol is Kubrick's, which is why I bring him up.
Yeah, for sure.
But I was really surprised by just how like hard Bobby went. He did have some trouble like at the very end with some like very complicated lines, but he really showed up and just delivered as like he laid it all out on the table. We had him like sobbing on the ground, just really like giving the performance of his life. And I was really interested in how that whole dynamic worked for you, because I was there like, a fellow actor, we were bouncing off of each other, but as somebody who had to like direct us, how was that for you?
Yeah. So like with working with him, it was interesting. Like the first couple takes would just kind of be like practice takes. And then the next few takes were like usually the best ones. And then I could tell like we were always falling off after a certain point. And I realized that pretty early on. Like I think, and this is just an important lesson, like for any directors watching, like you really got to pay attention to who you're working with because everyone operates differently. And if you're if you can pick up on things that they might not necessarily be picking up on, like it's really important to do so that you can adapt your directing strategy. So with Bobby, for example, he'd get really in his head about the lines. So it's kind of like when you say the same word over and over again, like cactus, 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 and then eventually the word kind of loses all meaning. You're like,
Mm-hmm.
cactus? Is that even a real thing? Like, it just sounds weird. That's kind of what was happening with him with these lines. So some actors will get like better and better and better, like as the takes go on. Some actors are like, the first take is incredible, and then they get like worse and worse and worse. And then with him, it was like there was like a spike in the middle. So, that worked out really well because I could be in like cinematographer mode for the first couple takes, and then I could really hone in on the directing for when he needed it. And my strategy with him was really just like to get him to improvise and to like push through, even if he forgets his lines. Cause there was a lot of times where he would just like stop the take because he forgot the line and we'd start over. And just like a good rule of thumb, if you're an actor or aspiring actor, watching this is to like, unless the director says cut, you keep acting, like you never stop. Because there was times where he would push through and then he would stop, and I'm like, you did it. You were improvising. It was great. So there was some of that, but like, I don't know. Like, I guess to answer your bigger question of like, what's it like working with like different types of people? It's really engaging. It's like it's super fun, and yeah, it poses an interesting challenge because you really got to like play to different people's strengths and weaknesses.
It definitely does make me like understand why so many big directors like have like their cast, like all of Wes Anderson cast is just kind of a big club of people that he just calls up and they're down to make his movies.
Mm-hmm. It makes sense. It
and it's
seems
like, oh
efficient.
yeah, like having been on it, it's like, of course you would do this. These are people that you work well with,
Right.
and you want to keep that like creative relationship going.
Mm-hmm.
Because on screen all we see is actors acting at each other, but there is that like kind of that third dynamic of the way the actors work with the director.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Which is kind of why I keep working with you. Like, I mean,
Despite
as a
it
writer
all.
and as an actor, yeah. Like I kind of, I know what to expect from you, and that can be like, that's something. That's
good
worth
or
something.
bad. Speaking of that, like, how did you like really like, push through it yourself on set? Because we were doing, even if we had a movie in the middle, it was a 12-hour day still.
Mm-hmm.
We were doing some pretty intensive stuff in the summer, so you're sweating. Sometimes I even sweat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, how did
Like,
you like get through it all, especially
just
on
like
set?
stay sane, not go crazy. Honestly, I
All of
was
the
fine.
above.
I was fine with it. Like the days we shot on weren't the craziest days I've shot. Like I filmed in much hotter conditions, which is like maybe hard to believe, but like there were days where we would have commercial shoots scheduled, and it's like we're not really rescheduling that. And so we'd be out in a field like away from any buildings for a 12-hour day in like 105-degree weather. Like there was some bad days. I guess I'm just like kind of used to it. And since our shoot days were like, a lot of them, especially the outdoors ones, were like shorter. They were like 3, 4, maybe 5 hours. I felt like it was more manageable most of the time. Yeah.
It helped that we did like our biggest, most demanding stuff at night.
Yeah, that's fair.
Where sleep was really the big issue, if anything.
I mean, we started filming one day at like 11 o'clock, which
it
wasn't
worked.
too bad.
Yeah.
Like,
And it was also like a 2-scene shoot, so.
yeah, I mean, we filmed for 2 hours that day. So I guess to answer your question, how did I stay sane? Kind of.
Stay resilient. How about that?
I feel like I have an interesting personality because I am like the pettiest person in the world, where it's like the smallest possible thing will just like I just can't be chill about it. And then when it comes to like really big important things, I'm just like this is what we're doing. Like I'm kind of like the hardest person when it comes to actually demanding things. I don't know if it's like my sports background or what. Like when it comes to like doing actually stressful stuff, like I really step up to the plate and it doesn't bother me as much. Just, rinse your dishes off when I don't know. I'm just making something up. It's like the small, it's the small petty stuff that like is harder for me to stay resilient with. But then like, a 12-hour shoot day and there's like tensions. Like, I don't know. I probably wouldn't have been able to get through it if I didn't care about the project. Like, to be honest, if it was someone else's project, I'd be like,
I'm not getting paid. Get out of here.
Yeah. Like at a point, I mean, I don't think we ever got to like that point, but
No.
My point being, it would be harder if it was something I didn't care about as much. And so I think my passion for the project got me through. Yeah. What about you? What did you do? Did you do some breathing exercises?
I had like, we had like our moments on set. Less so on set.
Not so much on set. Yeah.
It was usually the offset stuff that we had to just like, well, I have to see Zach, in a day, so we have to get this taken care of. It was mainly around like scheduling and just the stresses of making a feature film within a year.
Mm-hmm.
And like, again, it's been a thing where like, whenever we were not doing the movie, like not doing it, the harder parts were when we weren't shooting. Because when we were shooting, we would just like buckle down and actually do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
When we weren't shooting, it's like, it's like who has, we were at our throats at each other a little bit in like spots where it's like, well, like I needed to do this, things needed to be done. There's tensions. It's when you spend such like momentous amounts of time with people for so long, there's bound to be a bit of friction, which is something I reminded myself of is like, my wife was like, you're still friends, right? And I'm like, oh yeah, we're still friends. We're just currently also grumpy at each other. But like our ability to communicate and like say like, hey, this is how I'm feeling. I understand. Like this is like suboptimal and I'm trying to like do my best really helped. And remembering that while we were on set is like, I have fun with this guy. Like I love making movies with him. I really appreciate him as a person like in my life. So I have to let some things go when something rubs me wrong. And also like, we're just, we're in the pursuit of art. Let's just buckle down and do it.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, like some of the stresses are definitely like creative, like directed, but then the other ones are like, yeah, interpersonal stuff is hard too. Like that's something to consider if you're gonna do a big project. Like, and you're not doing it by yourself.
I've been on sets with people that I was like, why are you here? Why are you doing this? Especially on student film stuff, where I'm like we're bound by the same grade. I wish that other people would understand that as well. I've had like a lot of that, and for this like production especially, I was like I don't think that I could have done it had we not been so dedicated to it. Because a lot of people here, like a lot of people on like my student films, I was like, you're not dedicated to actually like communicating through the issues we're having. You're just here to like, cause your professor made you basically.
Right. It's like, do you even want to be here? But like for us, it's like, yeah, obviously,
Yeah. I mean, we were 100% dedicated to making a film in 2024 and we did it like to our credit. Yeah.
Like for example, like the night before one of our like coolest shoots where we were in the woods with the operators, like leading up to it, like there was tensions because I was like, oh, like you said you'd be here, like this or that, like logistical stuff. And then we got to shoot guns and we were like,
this rules. I love doing this.
Like, that's pretty cool. And so, yeah, like,
but
you have to like it. You have to have that passion to even be able to like push through.
Definitely actually getting on set helped ease a lot of the tensions of being on set. And I think most of the tensions of being on set came from like, I'd be working usually only 8-hour days. But my job had ramped up and I was like, I'm working like full days, then shooting, then going and having to like do all the rest of my like life responsibilities. Cause neither of us is getting paid for this project. And in fact, we're putting money into this project. So like it really came down to like, I'm just fatigued. We're at the end of a long day, and I'm like quibbling with you over like the way the scene should run for whatever reason, where I'm like, I don't know if I'm giving you some pushback, and like little moments of tension would pop up there, but like we got through them. There was nothing that made me question our creative partnership in that. I was like, oh, yeah. I'm tired and hungry and I haven't eaten and I got no sleep last night.
Yeah. And also like there was a consensus too, whenever we would like talk about like how things should go. Like there was usually like one or both of us would be like, oh yeah, like that is how we should do things, which was good. And so we were really like working it out and trying to like really authentically trying to make the best decision for the project, which worked, I think, pretty well.
Yeah, I think like obviously it really at the end of the day comes down to personality types and how like good you are at just working with other people, because again, on student film sets I've met people who, despite it all, really like were not great at working with other people, and I was like, you should probably find a job that lets you be independent. I don't know if, you know, like a film isn't just Wes Anderson. A film is everybody in the collaborative process that like contributed to making that film. And the film, this isn't just a Matteo Guthrie film. It's not just a Zach Koch film. It's the both of us working on this, plus all our actors, plus all our crew. And like, yes, were most of the actors just me again? Yeah. But like if we didn't collaborate, like we wouldn't get this done. And I feel that our dedication to doing that was perhaps our greatest strength throughout the film.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean,
wasn't my acting, that's for sure.
Or my directing, to be fair. But yeah, well, I guess, you know, we could take this a couple different routes. We could go into post-production, or we could take a break and do Zach's Gear Corner.
I'll let you bring us into Zach's Gear Corner. I'm curious because I brought out cheap cameras, and you said you said it applied. So I'm curious to see what you have.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Yeah. So we're starting a new segment. We started it a couple episodes ago, a bit more informally, but now it's formal.
It is law for 2025. Zach's Gear Corner
is a part of every single episode. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Unless you're like in the comments like, Zach's Gear Corner is stupid.
But also you're the audience. We get to tell you what to think. So here we go.
It's amazing.
What do you got for us?
It's the coolest thing ever. So today we're talking about the iPhone 16 Pro Max. And my thesis for Zach's Gear Corner today, but also like I hope to develop this further into probably a YouTube video on my main channel. But the iPhone 16, just the iPhone in general, is the modern day Bolex in a lot of respects.
With like the lens turret.
Yeah, the turret lens. So specifically, I'm making comparisons to like the Bolex H16, which was a Super 16 millimeter film camera.
Yeah, I love Super 16.
And one day we will shoot on it, specifically with a wind-up Bolex. But when the Bolex hit the scene, it was fully mechanical, so it was a lot more affordable than a lot of the motorized film cameras that were available at the time. It wasn't a consumer-based format like Super 8, but it also wasn't super high-grade like Super 35. And so it struck this middle ground while still being affordable because, you know, they were able to cut costs by making a fully wind-up camera. And, you know, the lenses are much smaller than 35 millimeter lenses as well. But what it represented for indie filmmakers is this affordable tool that you could just kind of pick up. It was lightweight, run and gun, low maintenance, and it was adaptable, partially because of its durable design, partially because it was lightweight, and also because the turret lens, you could just switch to any of the three lenses that you wanted. And so, you know, it was very much this grab and go filmmaker's tool. And a lot of great documentaries were shot on it. A lot of great narrative films were shot on it. It was a really powerful and it's a very iconic tool. Well, fast forward to 2025, Zach gets a new phone and is looking for every excuse to use it. My old phone was fine. It was iPhone 12 mini. Great device. Terrible battery life, but if you don't use your phone that much, it's kind of fine. You get through a day. Well, I was looking for an upgrade because it was getting older. Battery life wasn't great. And I was also looking to shoot like a lot of social media videos in projects that lend themselves to that run and gun style. So we've talked before on the podcast about the iPhone 15 Pro with the ProRes and the log and how just like useful those are to have built into like such a small device like a phone. And using that conversation to kind of justify my new phone purchase. It's really cool, guys. It's really cool. Like, speaking of a camera that you have on you, use what you have. Like, the best camera is the one that you have on you. That's what I meant to say. It's really checking off those boxes for me, for like being a high quality camera, but just being like the Bolex, it's grab and go. Also, that's a turret lens.
Yeah.
Think about it.
We've said this before, is like less so Super 16 than Super 8. But like this is the new Super 8 camera. You're taking all your family videos, like you might take it on on a separate camera, but that's if you're pretentious, which may be me. But like everybody I know is just posting to Facebook in what is clearly cell phone footage.
So it's kind of both, right? Because on one hand, it's a Super 8 camera in as far as it's like accessible and it's documenting memories, and like normies are using it. But I would also say it's embodying the H16 ethos and appealing to filmmakers as well. So, your average person isn't shooting ProRes and they're not shooting in log. Those things are toggled off by default. But
there's the ability to.
It's there, yeah. And so having worked with it a lot recently, I shot a music video with it. I've been shooting a lot of videos for social media, filmed in Vegas with it. That was pretty fun.
Looked good too.
Mini travel video. Yeah. So like what I can say about using it is, like, for one, the battery life's pretty good. Like, especially with the 16 Pro Max, I've never run out of battery, even for like 4-hour, 5-hour shoot days. Like, I get down to like 60%. It's not bad. That's better than most mirrorless camera batteries. And I just went balls to the wall and got the 1 terabyte model. So terabyte SSD means that, and with the good battery life, means I have a camera that's like always has free storage, is always charged up and ready to go, has like 3 focal lengths attached to it at all times, has a 6-inch display. Like, most camera monitors are like 5 inches. So it has a huge, bright, beautiful display that's higher quality than any camera display that you'd be like
great
external
refresh.
Camera. Oh yeah, the ProMotion. So it's a really great tool. So Zach's Gear Corner today, drawing parallels between the H16 and the new iPhones, H16 and iPhone 16. There we go.
Yeah, I see it. One question before we end Gear Corner. This is my parting shot,
please, please go.
You know how I am about gear. I am much more, actually, funnily enough, much more likely to use an iPhone than just like a dedicated camera.
Yeah, me too now.
You now come to the dark side, I guess. But how do you like when you are shooting? There's a bit of a distinction that shooting on an actual camera gives you. It's like, oh, these people are doing something. This isn't just 2 kids messing about in a park. How do you still have the feeling of a professional or semi-professional shoot? Because for us, it was always like, we're not just kids, especially when we were younger. We're not like, if you were to pop out of the sunroof of our friend's Dodge Durango thing with like 300,000 miles on it, and like film with a cell phone camera, it just looks like you're a kid being irresponsible.
Yeah, it does.
And if you do it with like a proper camera, if there's if somebody has a boom pole, if there's the whole thing, then you look like filmmakers being irresponsible. But at least like people are like, oh, he's doing that for art. I'm going to complain less than if this just looks like a child trespassing with a cell phone.
There's pros and cons. So I will say, like, doing professional work with the iPhone makes me feel like an uncle at a wedding. Like, I hate being like, I'm filming my videos, guys.
It doesn't have the ergonomics.
My hands are out like this because I don't want to block the mics, because the internal mics are really good. Now, I do have like handles that I can use to kind of bulk it up a little bit. And I think I said it somewhere else, but I have a cage that's specifically designed for this case. So basically the cage goes on the case and I can put my tripod plate directly on it. I can put like little handles and rigging on it. It does look a bit more professional. Like, people see that and they're like, oh, it's like a production. But generally speaking, the optics of working with an iPhone, it just makes you look like a tourist. And I kind of hate that. Also, like, the stance is just kind of lame. It's like, it just doesn't look great. But it does draw less attention in total. And that can work really good for guerrilla scenarios. So we might have been better off filming out of the sunroof of our friend's Durango with the iPhone than we would have with the camera package. Because I see what you're saying, but in total, the phone draws so much less attention because it's just it's physically smaller and it's a normal object. Like
they see that every day.
But from your perspective, it's like, yeah, cool production. They're using like the rigged out camera. So, you as a tool, you approach it differently. The videos I make with it feel different than the videos I make with like mirrorless cameras and cinema cameras. Like the tool really defines your artistic approach sometimes, not in total, but just like in smaller ways, which is something I'm working with. For example, with this music video I shot, I challenged myself. I said, don't you dare move the camera, because the temptation is like, you have this lightweight camera, you just want to film everything, shoot everywhere. And I was like, it's on a tripod. These shots look great. Let's just do that for the whole project. Don't even touch the camera. I had to kind of fight against that urge to use the tool in a way that I wouldn't have otherwise shot the video, if that makes sense. Like,
yeah,
the way I ended up shooting it is the way I should have shot it, and it's the way I would have shot it with
on sticks the whole time,
other gear, because it just lent itself to that. But because I had the iPhone, there was this temptation to just go crazy, and the project just didn't need that, and so I had to fight against the way that this tool wanted to be used. But that's a personal problem. Like, that's
it's like guys who just got their first DJI drone, and they're like, every shot is like, can this be a drone shot?
That's fair. Yeah, that's a good point. Whereas if you're using a heavy camera, you're just like, well, I don't want to have to set it up again, so it sticks. It is. I've definitely been there with 70-pound camera packages. That's a lot.
You just need to lift more.
I'm working on it a little bit.
This has been Zach's Gear Corner.
Da, 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 da.
Oh, we'll get some music in there, just,
I know. I need to get like a track list.
A theme song. This is Zach's Gear Corner, where he talks about cameras and all the ones he sold because he can't keep one.
Yeah. Hey, I've been pretty good this year.
You have.
For the most part.
As have I, but that's just because I'm broke. So, going into the end of this year, the past 2 months have just been post-production. So when we shot the film in 4 months, which is pretty darn good for, 15 days of shooting tops, right? But now we've been, albeit with certain pauses for my wedding, and then also
Justified.
Yeah. You've also got the house you just bought, and the holidays happened. So really it's been a month worth of work. How have you been doing in post-production? What are the challenges for you?
Working in Final Cut Pro is different when it comes to like linear types of editing. So like sometimes, and Premiere used to work like this, and so did Resolve, which were like the last platforms that I edited like really long projects in. Sometimes like when you move a clip, you just kind of want it to like stay there and you want to like build it out. And Final Cut really lends itself. There's so many things I love about Final Cut, and I'm really like a Final Cut like defender right now. It's by far my favorite like NLE, but for like some longer projects, you just kind of want to like especially if it's scripted and you know exactly the order of like the shots and stuff. Sometimes the magnetic timeline can kind of get in the way of that, but yeah, I'm trying to think of like other challenges with the project. The biggest one was sound design, because you wrote a script that's like very heavily dependent on sound design.
Oh like, yeah, watching some of the early edits you sent me, I was like,
they were bad.
This sucks. And then you just all you had to throw is sometimes goofy music on it. You threw some really like clown honk synths in one.
Yeah, I did.
And I was like, oh, okay, I see it now.
I've gone heavy with the sound design as of recently. There was a sound design platform I used to use, and then I stopped using it, and then I was working on this project, and it didn't have all the sound design elements that I needed, and then I'm like, okay, I'm going to go back to this platform. Since going back to this platform, like I've really built out the soundscapes and stuff of the film in a way that like drastically improves the product. So that was a challenge. I figured it out. Lots of layering. It's time consuming because some of these like some sections of this film have like 20 tracks plus like at once. It's a lot.
It's a lot of mixing to do.
Panning, mixing. Yeah, but it's good. It's
Are
good
you doing
queuing.
that like like 4D panning where you can like move it inside people's head.
Yeah. So the monster does that. It's like
Ooh.
spinning around you. It's really cool. So if this ever gets played in a theater, it'll be a good experience. I hope anyway. So yeah, like finding sound design online is kind of annoying. Like every time you need a new effect and you need a lot of them, it can just take forever to find each and every individual one. But this app that I've been using called Soundly, it's like it pulls from sources around the web, but also has its own sound effects library. And if you find a track that you like, you can just drag and drop into Final Cut, and then it's there. So it's literally like search for an effect you need. They probably have it. Drag and drop, search, drag and drop. Like it's way faster. And because of how Final Cut works, it automatically copies any media that is imported into the project. It copies it to the project folder. So you don't have to like, it doesn't go offline. It's great.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
so that was a challenge. Solved it. It's great.
I've also been doing sound work.
Yeah, you have. Tell me a little bit about that. What have you been working on?
So, and again, partially just because of the holidays and work, I don't have the full score together yet. But I do have the score lined out, which is something I like. And this is one where it's been asking other people for help is actually like painless and is fine, and they'll often say yes and they like it. There's some guys from local bands that I'm friends with. Zach, you know Patrick, and his cousin is also in some local noise bands. And we'd had like a preliminary recording session that was basically just Zach and I, and then kind of various other musicians. We just kind of sat down and we like bumbled our way through like half of one track.
We penciled it out barely.
It was figuring out what we needed. And then, I put together like 2 tracks already, that you already have in your folder. We got like the creature's sound down. It's like musical sting, which is also kind of the diegetic noise it makes. Keep that fuzzy. But throughout that, I was like, man, like I'm trained musically, but I'm not like the kind of guy that can just really produce. And we'd said on this show that we were going to record our own score. So I was a little bit daunted, but just basically getting a bunch of musicians in this study. We fit a drum set in here somehow, actually. It was really good. But just getting them in and having a jam session and just letting the space breathe and just playing with it. I would basically be conducting. I'd be like, give me more, and then, less, and then like conducting them as they do it. We had Patrick. He just freaking went crazy on the saxophone, the Barry sax, and just was like screaming through it and making it make all these ungodly noises for the climactic scene.
Which sounds great in the edit, by the way.
I can't wait. Why was I like trying to tough it out just by myself working in Audacity when I have like a wealth of talent at my disposal? People who like want to do this again. They were like, that was so fun. They're like, what are you doing after this? Because I want to like keep doing this. And I was like, yeah, like why not? Like why was I waiting? Why was I just like, oh, I just like probably they're busy or whatever. Like, if they're busy, like, okay, they'll tell me, but like why not ask? Because we like made something pretty incredible, honestly, that I was not expecting to get that much quality out of something that would probably have been just me like putting some chords down on an electric organ otherwise.
Yeah, I was really happy with the files he gave me, and I think they're playing really well in the edit.
And you're about to get like 3 more. I've just been kind of concurrently messing with them as I'm learning waveform. That's been my project for the start of the year, has been learning a new DAW. But it's working. It's very much like Pro Tools, and where like Audacity is a great free program to record to. Waveform is much more technical and lets you really like play with things in ways that Audacity is certainly lacking. For example, you can have multiple inputs, which I always like.
That's like a bare minimum.
Yeah, right. That's
requirement.
Bare minimum. I just didn't have it on Audacity.
That's hard. That reminds me of back when I edited it in Windows Movie Maker, You could only have one track of audio. So you literally couldn't have a sound effect and a music track. So you would render the whole thing out every time you wanted to like add a layer. Kind of reminds me of that.
You just at that point you just need to do one of those like exterior 4-track mixers, like the recorders, honestly. Right? But it's so much better when you just have a tool that works. So I've been working through that. I've got a few tracks in the pipeline. At this point, we'll have enough to just kind of make like a short like 10-song album, music from the motion picture Hypnagogia.
We should do that. We should totally do that. The film's called Hypnagogia, by the way.
Yes,
guys.
By the way, introducing our feature film Hypnagogia. In case
the debut feature film of Mateo Guthrie and Zachary Koch.
What do you know? A Zach and Mateo production.
Yeah.
Well, I think that brings us to the end of the show. Do you have any closing thoughts, Zach?
Closing thoughts. One thing I meant to mention when you asked about like editing challenges, this project had over 13 hours worth of footage, which is a lot. So yeah, one of the challenges was really sifting through all that and finding the hard drive space for it.
I do remember you having to like, okay, so I can only use this hard drive for this, and then I have to like move stuff over to this, and I have to keep
bad.
this SD
Things
card
are better
full.
now. Things are better now, but things were bad for a moment.
Never have enough storage.
No, I need to get a NAS, frankly. I think that would be great.
A friend of mine has one, and I was like, I don't need it. I don't do enough. And then I saw it, and I was like, well, what if I do need it, actually? I saw one I think I saw it at Costco on sale.
Really?
And I was like, we'll see.
That is tempting. So, we've talked about a lot, and I don't want to overstay our welcome with our audience, but I will ask you one last final question. If you could go back to the start of this project, what's one piece of advice you would give yourself?
Honestly, it's a learning film. I feel like there was some pressure of like, what if I never make a feature film again? What if I make this and it's like too hard or whatever? And like, I've blown my one shot to make something good. And like, it's a good film in my opinion, but there are bits where I'm like, next one we're going to improve. Next one we'll have a better script. Next one we'll have, more confidence directing actors, etc., etc. And I just want to be like, hey, like, have you seen like Francis Ford Coppola, who, I'm a Coppola shill, so we'll go on about this forever, but his first film was basically Roger Corman telling him, hey, go dub this like Italian like creature feature B-movie horror and just shoot some extra stuff to like recontextualize it for an American audience. And from like, I haven't actually been able to get my hands on a copy of it, but from all reports, it's terrible. And it's his first feature. And you know what? It helped him learn what he needed to make his next film, which helped him learn to make his next film.
It was a necessary step.
Yeah, and I think that I just like really need to be like, hey, like I know this film is weighing on your mind like a ton, and you like, it's keeping you up at night, but like, it's just a learning film. And then once you've learned from this, your next film, you're going to have greater synergy with Zach, because we will on our next feature. You will know not to like push the schedule into a month, because what were you thinking? You're going to know that you can like reach out to people and they will like to work with you. That's really where it is. And that's what I would tell myself.
Yeah, it's really good.
All right. Well, Zach, I'm going to turn that question right back on you before we sign out. What would you tell yourself?
I would tell myself to just give it 110%, because I was a little like I was afraid to give too much early on, because I was afraid that like maybe it would get finished. Commitment issues. You've been hurt before. Yeah, that's kind of. I was worried. I was so worried about it that I let it impact my prep. And I think if I could just like whisper in my, year prior self's ear, I'd be like, it's going to be great. Just give it 110%. It's going to be awesome. Like, it just use that confidence to just go and make something really cool. But, in total, like, to recap, like, it really was a learning experience. I think whenever you push yourself, like genuinely push yourself, I think 9 times out of 10, you're going to be impressed with what you come up with, even if it's not perfect. And it's 90% of the time going to be better than whatever you put out before. And so in a lot of ways, this is our best film, even though it's like, it's got its flaws, but somehow those flaws like make me more excited to make something else, because I'm like, I see the opportunity for growth. And so, yeah, overall, I'm proud of us. And I think this is going to be a great film, and I can't wait to share it with people.
Yeah. Well, this has been Your Next Film.
Yes, tuning in remotely from
the remote edition. It's like it's 2020 again. This is a podcast for creatives by creatives. I've been your host, Mateo Guthrie.
And I've been your co-host, Zachary Koch.
Go make a movie.
Go make a movie. Make a feature.
Make a feature.
12.
Go make a feature. Make 12 in a month and get back to us, because I'm not doing that.
Make 2 a month and beat Joel Haver. He can't touch that. All right. Thank you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Love ya. Peace out.
Ciao, ciao.